Welcome, motherfuckers, to another episode of Where's Your Mom At? Where I'm trying to talk to you and see if you can help me find her again because I really miss her. So, I think I should probably do one video that I've been needing to do for the zero audience that I have. And I've been terming it, I'm wearing this because it's a little chill. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't because it kind of comes across as like douchey. He thinks he's pretty cool. I'm autistic. Well, this is a term that I call the high story. Don't know if it's a professional term, honestly. Not sure, but it's a term that I use. So, how it works, it's a three-step system. And not in terms of having honed this and I'm gonna write a book about it, but high story in my book is, how would I word this? The story of the Aeon and the Titans. And then the story, the origin stories of the world and the high stakes things. So the medium story is the actual story. Now, the difference here would be, this is Eris, and then this is the Forgotten King. It seemed to me, in my mind, that in fantasy there was tiers of stories as such. Now, low story, to me, I would just kind of say side characters. Can't think of another word right now. Side character is like lore within the the world. In this city it was invaded by the orcs and stuff like that. Low story because it doesn't really have a major. If you take it or leave it, you'll have the same effect of the medium and the high story. The low story is there as fluff essentially. It's kind of the idea that it is it's I don't know, I just consider it fluff. God, just aesthetical. But it doesn't always necessarily have to be fluff, but that's just kind of how I've looked at it. It's just the fluff stuff. When was the city built, and why was it built, and what are the trade networks between these countries, and how many countries are there, and how do they act within each other. Essentially, I've been lately working on the low story stuff a lot. I've literally walked away from the medium story for a long time. I finished writing the book. Oh my God, when was that? Maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and I just have not gone back to it. I'll go back to it here and there and do editing, but for whatever reason, I just do not want to. I just want to leave it alone. I don't fucking want to touch it. It's a headache inducing just thinking about the medium story. So we're not focusing on that right now. Like I said, the low story. We'll get to the high story, but the low story is something that I've really been honing in on, and that's the and I don't really know how exactly where you'd put this in, but that's the map stuff that I've been working on. That's the cultures of Dubois and the Wulandi, Lyria, Albadan, Shattered Isles, Merphos a bit. That's what that is. It's just this low story stuff. It's just things that just need. In turn, the low story can help the medium story. The more I flesh out about a country, the more, if a character from that country comes into the medium story, I have a good basis of like, oh, here's how he would be culturally, and here's, you know, the way he'd behave and what his mindset would be, and things he doesn't like, things he does like. It does help that. So the low story is just a place to really enhance. I mean, that's your enhance factor. If I were to terminology use and stuff, like, now I'm not really professional about any of this shit. This is just what I've been gathering as I've been looking at fantasies and all that shit. What else? Like low story stuff that I would kind of be working on. Geography, names of rivers and all this, and mountains and fucking land plate. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's the fucking Rittermark or Rivenmark or whatever the hell they call it in Lord of the Rings. And then I've been kind of really fleshing out the actual timeline of events that lead up to, which, to be honest, doesn't really affect the medium story in any way whatsoever, but it really does affect. It comes from the high story. It's built off of that. And this is just an enhancing system. It's like a circle. You have the high story, you have the low story, and then like the middle is in here. This kind of works as such to create an environment, and that's the idea that I have with the low stories. Now, hope this doesn't become something where people think like this, but this is just, the way I just think shit in my head. I swear, it's just, I feel like I'm like either 10 years behind someone or just off the planet about how I would look at shit. But I swear it'd like take me 10 years to be like, oh, so it's called this, and someone, as soon as they see it, like, oh, yeah, we knew that the whole time. I'm just a very slow learner. I swear to God. You know what I mean? Like, it's called a fiefdom. It took me about 15 years to develop a system, and I think I'm going to call it a fiefdom, and this is how it works. And where someone would read the first line and be like, that's a fiefdom. I'm like, fuck! Like, that's just how I always feel. I just kind of feel I make things harder than I should, but I can't help when I'm alone. If I'm with people, I can get it a bit, but when I'm alone, it just, the things that I do, I swear. So we're going to walk away from the low story a little bit and get back to the high story of the Aeons and the Titans. In a sense, the high story is, why are we here, and why does any of this matter? Now, why are we on the planet of Uandra? You know how there's Voss. I don't remember exactly how it works. And there's Sapernia, and then there's that. I don't remember exactly how it works. And there's fucking Ansar Khan. No, there's Ansar, and then Shattered Isles are in here. Moblaw's down here, and Elandria's over there. Why are we here? Why are we on this planet called Uandra? Gee, I wonder where you got that name. Why? That's all the high story is going to solve. We chose to create a fantasy, and we chose to say that it's going to take place on an imaginary world, and then it's going to have stories within it. Well, why did we come here? Why this planet? For me, when it comes to like building fantasy, when it comes to storytelling or any kind of art thing, like drawing or painting or music, everything has to matter. Now, I'm not saying it has to for everybody, but for me it does. I can't just make something and like, well, they're just here because that just happens to be the planet they're on. Like, no, it's gotta be, there's a point to it. Why is there a sun here? Sun. Why is there a moon called Dree? Like, it has to matter. It can't just be. You know what I mean? You mean, what is it? It's the moon. Like, we don't need to know why it's there. Like, That's not what science wants to discover. And in a way, I kind of do it in a scientific way of like why of everything. Okay, so why? High story. Why are we on the planet? Well, I've described it a bit, and I don't really know how detailed, but I do know the more I talk about it, the more it gets shaped in people's minds. You have the universe that we live in. And remember, you got planets, solar systems. Here's another solar system. Excuse me, galaxy. These are galaxies. Pretend this is. That's Andromeda, and that's the Milky Way. And there's probably other galaxies that I've never heard of. And science is like, oh, you don't know the fucking Cartooning galaxy? It's got the double spiral Swistle signs. And you're like, oh, I don't know. But that's what it is. And inside the Milky Way, Earth is wherever. And we live in our world. This is actively happening. Now, it is very unknown, this next part, of how it came to be. But we are existing in this place. We see stars in the sky. And there's fucking quasars. And there's pulsars. And weird fucking, I don't even remember, what's that called? A comet and shit. That's all happening here. And we don't even know. Like, if we only know not even, like, as big as that circle is of this entire little area here. And this is only a fraction of it. But that's where we exist. We can agree upon that because we are fucking standing here right now. Now, as it's explained in science, I guess, apparently the universe is ever expanding or something like that. Like, it's growing. From the source of what they would think is the Big Bang. It's just, it's growing from that point, and it's got this, there's a speed to it, and the closer you get to the line, it turns like to microwaves or something, and it's like the fuzz of a TV screen. I don't know. It's weird to me, the way they explain it. But it is growing. So it'll be, now it's fucking this big. And then it gets bigger and all that. And then more shit's made, more planets are being created, more stars are being created, and all that shit's happening, and it's just growing and growing and growing. Well, outside of it is unknown. It's absolutely unknown the way where does it grow evenly, apart? Does it go one way? Like, what are the directions of the universe? And what lies outside of our universe? That's where reality stops. Not, like, I'm not even trying to be like, it's like not a metaphor or like anything, but like that's where the reality of like what science will say, and this is where I step in and do fantasy. Outside of this is utter blackness. Nothingness, at least as we would see it and identify it. Outside of that is the place where the book begins. Again, I don't really have an explanation of how the Titans, but I do of the Aeon. Titans found a way through. And in that blackness, they brought a very special piece of technology with them. We know it as Kramos. Kramos is the sun. It is the light. Imagine we look up in the sky and the sun is actually protruding out into our world, casting its light. And behind it is nothingness. That's Kramos. I've always drawn the planet as like a flat disc, but it's elliptical. It's more of a circle. I think the disc thing is just, it's kind of like an art choice, but no, there's Uandra. Now, this was not always here. Uandra was not always here. When the Titans came to this blackness, they discovered that there was beings, some sort of entities that I don't know how to explain it. Like they were within this, something, a sensation that they're like you're walking in the dark of a forest, and you could sense there might be a living creature near you. You don't know, but you can just like, I feel like it, man. I think I hear rustling of deer. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of feel something like that. That's what they can sense here. Now, the Titans. Oh, okay. Will be named this. Some of them got fucked up names. Almost. Some of these names might sound familiar if you know the book. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 Titans. These guys, as I kind of said a few times, are very similar to the Titans of the mythology of the Greek mythology. And a little sponsor right there. Thys, Thyarna, Kupak, Wid, Pan, Huron, Tirn, Bahavan, Domius, Jin, Krykos, Gelkos, and Dove are the Titans. Now, when they came into this place and saw these beings just kind of out and about, floating in their own little cultures, kind of the way we look at like bacteria and stuff. That's what it was. A very bacterial, I don't know, how we look under a microscope and see that. And if you think about it, like kind of health-wise, they lived in the umbrella of something that they would later call mother. Like, you know how we drink vinegar and it has the mother in it? This kind of layer, almost like this home for this bacteria base. Much the same. I mean, I did this on purpose. So that's what's outside of here. These very, very primal beings, not even that primal, like bacterial, living their lives here. Now, the whole purpose of them going here, quite unknown. But what is known is in the document, it states that Thys, in the realm that we call creation, someone spoke to him that he identified as God. And it was God tasked him to go to this realm. And once upon he enters this realm, he, with God communicating to him, must give these little beings a home. So they made a place. And him and all the other Titans created everything within this world. Some of the Titans were involved with the land shapes. You know, creating the rocks, essentially. Creating the foundation of the land. Creating from the ground up what would be something stood upon. Then others were involved with the waters and how they flowed and where did they cut into the world and always seeking the lowest points. Where did the rivers go? Some did that. Some did the mountains, like from the grounds, how high up. Some were obsessed with the mountains, I guess. And then there was later like the fauna, and then some were involved with the flora. Like it was a whole collaborative effort, much like a developer team making a video game. It's just a group of people that had their own tasks and they made something. This is a very reminiscent of, this whole story is reminiscent of our modern culture, basically. Like you can kind of see identifying traits of this and how video games are made and developer teams and all that shit and tasks that are given to each one. And some people code things, some people fucking make, I don't even know, I've never done video games, but you know what I mean? Like it's essentially works just like that, and that's what it is in this world here. And they made it. And then it was finally Thies, who was the leader of this group, who created the hub of these beings. And they became Anaku. And the Anaku are a flora-like living humanoid. They're kind of like this green-like being that greenish of skin, kind of hair that resembles leaves, but also it's got this translucent look to them. It's not quite leaves. You couldn't pluck it and it wouldn't act the same. They're kind of like a mix between like a, how you look at like dragonflies and beetles and stuff like that. The way that they kind of have those wings, and then they have this kind of greenish skin, like not really lizard-like, still kind of humanish. It's just like tree peoples and stuff like that. Now, barking over time, probably, I don't know. I've never really distinguished what they look like. But they were given a host to live in. But that, as it was said in the story, they cried for their mother. So Thies and a few of the Titans found what was considered the mother, that object. And they placed that object on top of the world, or the world on top of the object. So you get a ball. Now this essentially acts as gravity, and you rest it on the object. It kind of cocoons around it and wraps itself. Like when you have like a sheet and you have a big bowling ball in the middle, the sheet will kind of bend down with it and surround it. That's what they did. Poking out through certain areas, these thin veils, was the mother. It touched it the closest, and then it kind of poked through, and that's where the Anaku inhabited, and that's where the great forests grew. There was originally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 on Atria alone, which are the 3 main places that we are only concerned with. We're not really concerned with the rest of the world. But there was that many, and they settled in them, and the forests would grow. These homes, these beautiful homes that they created. Now, they began living as they do. Now time, I'm not really sure how time was working at this point, but it was indeed creeping along. Maybe not exactly how we know it, but it was still moving. Thies would go in and out, and in and out, and in and out, in constant communication with the Creator, their Creator. And then it was the other Titans that created these realms, the 13 realms. I'm not drawing 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, they're out here. Those are the planets. What we would see in the sky as planets. Those were their homes. And from their homes, they would come back to the world and help make it, and help guide and help teach. And as you can imagine, to the Anaku, these are gods. Those are the gods to the Anaku. And essentially, I really hope that glare wasn't fucking a whole lot up. Bitch! But as that works, those gods guided these people, taught them, showed them how to grow, did Titan things. And it was just a system that was working for an undetermined amount of time. And because of all of this, and Thies going back and forth, something started to happen. And it started with Dove. Dove. Now, Dove would be a name that sounds super duper familiar. He is the one that started to grow slightly resentful against the Anaku, because they were killing his beings. They were destroying his living creatures that he made. And he was kind of the one who really was focused and honed in on all the wildlife, the squirrels, rabbits, and deer, just like the natural things that people would end up hunting for food. And he started growing resentful, and every once in a while he'd make a slightly foul creature to attack them. This one's going to be a fucking crocodile, you know what I mean? And then this one's going to be a fucking lion, you know what I mean? Like, they're just kind of predator creatures. But then eventually in time, he started making really foul creatures that kind of twist our understanding of how animals work. And that's where you have things like the underlings. Underling prophet, as it's considered. You have the undergrowth, which is a being that's made of, it looks like a swamp, but it can move. And it has like tendrils and stuff like that. He starts making these fucked up things, and eventually he gets the eye of Theis, to which Theis and a few of the other titans gather him up for his crimes and send him back to where they think the creator is, this center of the universe, to be judged by the creator. They send him to this place alongside him, drop him off. Oh, creator, here is the one that is going against your wishes. And he takes off. That's the end of that. They're like, well, there we go. Like, done and done. Dove is gone. So there's only 12 of us. We can hang out again. And then they start to continue to let this grow. Now, in that time of it growing, Theis stopped hearing the creator. After the Dove incident, stopped hearing the creator's voice in his mind, how the creator spoke to him. And so he kept going and coming and going and coming. And it was in this space here, between the planet and between Kramos, their vessel, that things started to get different there. Now, the Titans are considered the natural law and order. They create the world, they give it guidelines, they make it so, and then so it is. One of the concepts of the Titans creating this place, because of the behest of the creator, is to create we're going to term it a farming system. These beings here can help bring power to these beings here so they can bring it back. That whole back and forth, that is like bringing the goods. You invade this land, you set these people up to start bringing you goods and to procuring things and trading, and you're taking it back to where you come from. It's a charging place. And they use this as a kind of a farm. So in one way they're helping these, and in the other way they're not. This creator is kind of the leader of the Titans, if you will. Imagine the creator, imagine calling the king a creator. The king of your whole fucking race of human beings. That's how it is. Now, it kind of acts the same as everything else will later in the book. Eventually, Dove finds his way. My kneecap's itchy. It's weird. Dove finds his way back here in the planet now called Uandra, and in hiding. But when Dove comes back, he comes back with something a little different. And that would be a whole new group of people. Man, the planets aren't gone, they're staying there. Dove brings back with him the Aeon in secret. And the Aeon come through here. And they start to act upon this place as well. In history, when in Britain, I don't remember who it was, but they said that for the Saxons to come over, like just kind of come over and help us, and you can kind of have some land for helping us. And then the Saxons were there, and then like they did their helping thing. That, you know what? Why don't we just bring everybody over here? This is cool as fuck right now. And then all of a sudden, the Angles as well, and you have Anglo-Saxon and all that. That's essentially what it was like. Just invite these mercenaries over to fucking stop the Titans, because Dove did not agree with what was going on. He wanted the Titans to be destroyed. Not even destroyed, but disrupted. He hasn't really gone off the deep end yet. It's unknown how he escaped, by the way. Now, here's the beginning of this conflict between the Titans and the Aeon. Now, I think I said it in the last video who they were. So you have Oapake, you have Aik, you have what the fuck's their name? You have Volur. You have other ones that I can't think of. I think Alaric. I can never remember the other ones' names. But you have these people, right? And they are in secret here. Now they start to see the same kind of thing here. This is a great fucking place. This is cool. This works, man. In secret, start creating races of their own. Dove, in this sense, acts as a sort of Prometheus and helping them. Thinking it might be a little different. Now, the Forgotten King, as we're going to call him, or Oapake, quietly creates man at the behest of Dove. We don't know this, but Dove acts differently when he's come back. It's because something's attached to him. It's very rare. It's like going out in the woods and a tick gets you. It's just like, or poison ivy. You know, it's like it doesn't every time happen, but there's a possibility it could. And it did. And this blackness, as I described in the last video, this empty space, is where the Whisper lives. In the empty space. Well, he found a way to attach onto Dove. The Whisper sees this as one big mistake. One that must be righted. And he acts through Dove. It's a very slow process of taking over, but he can eventually do it. This will be the way to stop it. A long, drawn-out process. And I think I've said it before, where Dove is not like this omnipotent being that can just like make it so. Like, and then I want this to vanish these people. You know, like I'm going to create a fucking tornado to destroy those people and a flood. But like he's not that in this world. This is the place where he can't truly act. Not in his true form. Like he can out here. There's a reason this is all darkness. The expansion of the universe will eventually destroy it. There serves a purpose. He must keep it clear. But they're causing issues here. Ones that can be felt all the way to the Milky Way galaxy. You can feel it now around you. So, because of all that, Dove / the Whisper use the Aeon to cause a disruption to the Titans. And so quietly did they create their own peoples too. This place, this Uandra, this planet, there is something strange about its ecosystem. Now, the farming situation of the Titans serves as such. But that's not what the Aeon are truly doing. But they do feel the compulsory nature of creation here. That something has to be made. If I'm here, I must make. That will be their undoing eventually, just as it would have been the Titans. Social constructs were made up in the Titans' minds. The Aeon's creations is where we start to see free will act in its own way. Dove, or the Whisper, use this Kramos as their hub, where they work, where everything happens. They become the sun, the light. Now, Theseus started to discover, Theis started to see something was going wrong. And when he found these Aeon here, and they could not budge them from leaving, he tried to find a way to right the wrongs. The Titans had built the world as an image, as something like a farming system. Like this concept, it's easy, it's just, I made this, it's right here, and the Aeons are disrupting that. And Theis wanted to fix this. As the Aeon are let in, he's panicking, and he wants to stop all of it. And Dove tells him he cannot. Dove says, you cannot stop this process from happening. Dove gives creatures the power to contest the gods, these aeonic little beings that are made. They have the power to contest their own god, but also the Titans. Dove, the Whisper, is acting as a sort of, like I said, Prometheus of the situation, giving them the fire. And as Forgotten King quietly creates them, Dove protests. Dove does not, god damn it, Theis does not like it. Dove has to hide. Oapake, Elaric, and all of the other Aeon in forests alongside the Inaku in the darkness. Now those dark forests, these aren't just regular forests. These are special forests. Like I said, only 7 in the entire continent of Atria. They're impenetrable dark forests where light will never see. Impossible to see. The Titans are not allowed within those places, nor can they act inside of them. There's some sort of barrier. Now, as the Aeons sought to stop the process of what the Titans were doing, this farming process, so they created their beings. A sort of balance in this duality. There's a tipping scale that can happen inside of here in the Aeon and the Titans. The Aeons were the ones to understand, like, well, the Titans have this, we have to have that, and that's where you start to see their own creations coming up, counterbalancing the Titans' creations of the Inaku. Now, this is when the painted concept of the world becomes a degradation, becomes a place that is nothing different than outside of here, growing, making Theis grow furious. This is the one place where perfection could have been found. Outside of the universe, originally set up as a farming system, cut off from his own creator. I think as he was cut off, he starts to have his own concepts, and he said, this is a perfect image of everything that cannot be out here. Everything out here collapses, dies, falls to ruin. Comets slam into planets and destroy them. Solar galaxies will eventually collide into each other. Like, it's a horrible fucking place. Horrible. It's beautiful, sure, but in a horrific way. Out here is a painted image. Is a beautiful thing that is perfect. The Aeon came in and fucking destroyed it. And it's just in his mind. He's like, we have to destroy all of this. Now the Whisperers thought, yes, perfect. Dove. Why did Dove turn on the Forgotten King? Thys felt he was being betrayed by Dove. Once he was in between the place when he moved between the realms, that middle area, the whisper called out to him. Now, the whisper, through Dove, got what he needed from Thys. Thys thought, I gotta stop this. He's gonna go in Thys. He's gonna start trying to manipulate him forward, right? Now, Thys ignored it, but he did hear the song. And he understands what that is, and he saw that it was on Dove. He knows that there's a dark being in his mind, this whisper, that he has to fight now. This whisper that can penetrate within inside of him that was in Dove, now moved into him, and he feels like this is bad. I have to deny this. Dove, or the whisper is like, fuck. Dove was then tricked to turn on the Forgotten King, to which Thys goes into the creation realm one last time. He goes up to the actual Kramos, the sun, where Dove inhabited. He grabs the whisper, comes back to sever the bridge. Essentially, there was like a bridge. He severed it. To which, cursing the entity of the whisper and casting it forever onto Dove. So, the whisper was originally in Dove, using him to do things. Then Dove tried to jump to Thys, but then Thys discovered something was wrong and found a way to counter it and threw it back on Dove, cursed. Giving the mantle of land to fear. So fear had then started to grow in the world of life. His new right hand. Fear will later play an important role. Now, the voice of Dove will be used against mankind to sabotage, to set everything back to an unthinking world for fear of his creator. Thys, cursing Dove, locking him inside of here, casting it upon him to be cursed and to disrupt everything, setting this land now into fear, for fear in the sun is fear in the world. Thys curses everything. If I can't have it right the way I want it, it's going to be destroyed. And then maybe in its ruins I can rebuild it. It's very irrational thinking. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's kind of what he thinks. Thus creating the events that will come to follow after that. A world that is on the brink of destruction already. Now, the Aeon and the Titans became mortal enemies. The Aeons in their certain homes quietly created their beings in a hushed way, while the Titans have their Inaku. Out of nowhere come another group of beings that will be called the Neniran. Now, I don't think we need the image anymore. So, the war on the Titans would eventually happen, with the Neniran popping out of nowhere. Now, the Neniran were led by a man named Quinlan. That name would sound familiar. They side with the Titans. They were said to be sent by the Overseers, the Hidden Ones. Who that is? Really hard to say. Now, 12 plus the additional 10 to 12, I don't remember, or 12 to 14 of the Neniran against 7. Now, keep in mind, these guys all bring the Inaku. Thousands of Inaku on their side to fight against the mighty Aeon. This would be eventually called the War of the Gods. Dove, the betrayer of the Titans, the first whisper, stuck. I mean, I should have drawn it above, but they would be stuck in the sun, trying to aid the Aeon. Now, this battle eventually will destroy most of them. Sadly, honestly, most would have been destroyed. Except for a few. Surviving the war would have been Oapake, Aik, and these two. These two go to the north and create the northern kingdoms that would eventually be called Albadan and the Shattered Isles, Valakmir. These guys are blood brothers. These two would have been turned on each other by Thys. Because Thys would eventually have a grand plan. Time will pass by. The dark forest will continue to grow. The world will seem to have calmed down. Quinlan and his men of stone now aid the Anaku. The Anaku have kingdoms, in fact. Through the major forests. How many survive? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 5 forests survive. First one is Trinity. Second one, oh God. Oh Lord. I don't remember the names of forests. I'll just tell you where they are. Shattered Isles. There's a one in Dubois. Forgot the name of. There's one, two. That one there, which is near Albadan. Albadan, Trinity. Oh yes, and I think we're just gonna call it the Ludenan Forest or something. The Ludenan Forest. It's in the south of Ansar. Now there's major nations that grow here, quietly in the forest. They have these big, massive, giant tree towns and metropolises and all that stuff in the pitch darkness. And they grow. Quinlan and his Nainiran would aid these. The Titans have grown weak and have almost vanished. There's only Thys left. Quinlan works directly under Thys. And he aids him and his Nainiran. He's got a couple here, a couple there, boom, and he's the only one that helps Trinity. Quinlan's the strongest. Time would grow. Now these Aeon here, these remaining Aeon, it's not really known about where they are, what's going on with them. They are thought to have been destroyed. Thus begins the story of Quinlan's discovery. Now, this is where it starts to get really, really interesting. This, we were going to talk about Quinlan. Remember the nations, the kingdoms, under Thys, under one God. Keep these two fuckers stuck in your mind, though. Get stuck in. We gotta, yeah. Quinlan. 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 I don't remember where I got that name from. I thought I made it up. I think I looked it up once and it was something weird. in fantasy already, but whatever, I don't care. Now, Mr. Quinlan here talked to an Anaku king. I don't remember his name. Doesn't really matter. And that king said to him, you know, we've been getting a lot of strange rumors around, like, not only our forest here, but we've heard it in countless others, like something dark and sinister is growing. Something strange. And we don't know exactly what it is. And Quinlan's like, oh, it's okay. Like, the Aeon are gone, you know. There'll be no more of that. But I can task my brothers and I, and we can search this out. So Quinlan talked to the other Nynaeran, and he said, hey guys, in your other nations of I almost said Fatu, the other nations of the Anaku, there's something that's growing. They kind of got together and they all said, yeah, like we've gotten the same word from here for my king. And then this one said, well, yeah, me too, and all that. And then one of them said, I've discovered some strange going-ons in the darkest, deepest parts of the forest where even the Anaku do not dwell. Something strange is happening. And he said, okay, well, we have to discover this. So they went to their own places and they went and searched the deepest, darkest places of Uandra. In the Trinity Forest, where the Anaku inhabit there, that would be, the deepest, darkest place would be the trench. Miles wide and miles deep. Like an abyss. Something out of a dream. Quinlan, alongside with his, what would that word be, apprentice, searched out these places and tried to stop all of the... He found things down there. Let me do actually a reading. It's a short story. The growth of man in the forest was quiet, to say the least. At first, it did not seem to be what was felt by the Anaku elders, the fear they held. Quinlan had tasked his most trusted partner, Caius, to accompany him to discover the source of this disturbance, for his brothers had gone far and wide to discover similar disturbances throughout the province of Vail. Within the eye of the forest that led down to the deepest and darkest trench was a place that became lost to time. Over the years, the abandoned thoughts and memories of the wars still lingered. It was as if the grudge of Dulag still lingered. His echoes still ran deep, begging of freedom from his prison. Quinlan purged all he could through the forest. The web of lies had grown to entangle all in its path. He could feel the great power that coursed like an infection through the trees, twisted and misshapen. Caius was fearful, but held his resolve. It showed great strength that he could abide the darkness with such ferocity. I forgot to mention this. This is like a super important detail. But the Forgotten King, Oapeg, was captured after the war. Him and his brother, and they're in the prison. I forgot to mention that. They're in the prison, the Great Tree of Life, inside of the Trinity Forest. God damn it. Anyway, that's why it's like Oapeg's trapped. So they were, after the Great War, they were imprisoned. The long and dark echoes of a bygone era permeated the dense air. Stale and stagnant whispers could creep into one's ears of promises. Promises that fought all logic in his mind. He knew this was the work of that ancient being. He's talking about Dove in the whisper. For this was the place that held no love of the light. It was the dark passages that threats lingered and fears subsided. Quinlan knew this place was holding a great evil, a powerful spell. What was within was foul indeed, was a foul thing indeed, though he could not feel it sensing out for his presence. Whatever it was not intelligent, the thing he's searching for. More like a mindless entity crawling on the floor of the forest, prowling for sustenance, rather than a predator skulking in the dark. He still needed to be cautious, for any mistake could be his last, especially in a place as this. Alongside him, Caius never spoke. His lips never uttered just what Quinlan knew he was feeling. It was growing. Whatever it was growing and growing fast. They needed to hurry and find the source of its power, so that they might crush it before it grew too powerful. They ran through the fog that clung to the foliage and wrapped around the mighty trees. Quinlan controlled his breathing so that he might sense out the entity. It had grown. There were multiple beings, hundreds in fact, if not thousands before they could reach it. There was no sound. It was void from their ears. A moment of reprieve. A glimpse of one last silence that would never touch the face of Uandra again. Then he heard it. The many beatings of desynchronized hearts. The pounding of life being throughout the forest. It wasn't until he saw it, pulling his torch over them, revealing that which he had felt to be true. There were countless huddled beings, cold and naked in the dark, their skin pale and translucent. He could see the fluids flowing through them. They had no eyes. They had no distinction from one another. They shivered cold and afraid in the dark. Quinlan could see their beating hearts of black pumping rhythmically and constantly emitting a flicker of a light upon each beat. Caius rose his hand against them, but Quinlan suddenly stopped him. A moment of reprieve for the pathetic creatures. One lifted its eyeless head upon Quinlan and cowered under him. Quinlan knew what it was. They were the beings created by Dulag. They were the cursed ones. That story is the story of how mankind, and essentially all the others, were created. Though interestingly enough, it was only Quinlan who discovered them. I'm trying to put this back. I just don't remember where I fucking put the goddamn thing at. Cypress. There it is. Quinlan was the only one out of all his brothers to discover them. But he stayed his hand. He did not destroy them. He pitied them. Caius questioned him, and Quinlan said, "Don't question me." And it was this short story that goes on that Quinlan comes into play as one of the people that is to blame in the Inaku's eyes, possibly, if they've discovered the truth. He is the great betrayer. He did not, in fact, help the Inaku and Thys. He should have destroyed them, but he did not. Something in him stayed his hand. What that thing was the whisper. The idea that this higher being, this thing that he was told was evil, may not be truly evil, in fact. And so he left them. And in time, there's a whole story there, but in time, they grew. And they lived alongside the Inaku, separate from. Then we have the story of Tan. It is believed that Tan, in that picture there, the first man there, that could have been Tam, presenting himself to Quinlan. Tan is the leader of these beings. Now remember, in the forest, time does not exist. Fear is enveloping around the whole world, but time does not exist as we understand it. It is unknown how many countless years happened from Quinlan's discovery to Tan here in this time of the history. This is the story of the mass exodus. This is the story that begins the counting down of time. It is Tan who is told by Dove to escape the forest. And it begins with him lighting a tree on fire after Dove, literally like Prometheus, gives him the ability of fire. And he lights one of the major trees. You know, you think of there's like a bunch of tangled trees everywhere. It's a dense forest so thick you can't see the sun. He just lights it, and then the rays come in. For the first time, light enters the forest to quickly be swallowed by nothingness, just pure blackness. It seals again, leaving nothing happening down here. But outside, they know, is bright and beautiful. And when that ray cast upon, for that brief moment, Tan did call out, and the voice answered, saying it was Dove. And then the entire adventure happens, the story of Tan, where the wolves of Dove guide Tan from the forest, and he leaves it. Here's the tangled forest and just all these fucking trees and shit. They break from the forest, fight off the Dizarine, which are the Anaku. Bravion the Red saves them, stays behind, and they are free into the world to begin the countdown. But in their minds, Tan would begin the domination of man. And so time begins. And the nation that would become Tantorum, Torum is the place of Tan. So Tan, place of Tan. The nation of Tantorum would begin. How fucking deep do I need to go into this one? Doesn't matter. Hundreds of years pass. These original peoples, of Tan at least, live a longer, unnatural life. Soon he has sons. He has 2 twins with a woman. One named Odysseus and one named Tanias. And then thus begins the story called The Snake in the Portal. I kind of skipped really hard over the story of Tan because I don't have it here anymore. Jacob actually wrote the actual short story of how they exited the forest. If I can find it, I might edit it in. If I have it somewhere or I read it out loud in a recording, I don't fucking know. These are the brothers born in the year 222. And they lived. And you have a Cain and Abel situation here. They were told, never ever will you ever go back into that forest again. You don't belong there. That's what the Dizarine are. Those are bad things. Years go by. I'm looking through a girly magazine now. Their father dies in 239. It wasn't until the 400s, 400 and the 420s, that Odysseus, seeking to understand, wanting to destroy in his way, because he can never live up to his brother Tanias, wanting to destroy possibly and bring out one of those Anaku. Very foolish of him. But he tried it. He went in there, climbed over the new creation called the Dividing Wall, this massive fucking wall that cuts the forest off to the kingdom of Tantorum. The kingdom of Grief, I believe, was the first kingdom. Yeah, the land of Grief falls from the wall, gets hurt, awakens in the camp, or at the massive city of the Anaku, called Entrin. Now in Entrin, he's shown the light, that moment of like dancing with wolves or whatever, like something like that. He's shown the other side. He lives amongst the other side and sees what they truly are. They're just beings like him. They have a different creator, but they're still just beings like him. But in that time, the snake in the portal, we have Theis, who spoke to the king's son, Prince, I don't have his name right now, to trick Beowulf in the actual prison alongside Oedipus. If he could get Aik to kill the king's wife, forgotten king's wife, his chosen created wife he made for himself, if he can get that to be destroyed, perhaps he can maybe put an end to this forgotten king and his wife. And so Aik agrees. And does he turn on his brother? To which his brother destroys him and curses him. And upon his freeing from his prison, he is freed from his prison to Rome. But the freeing is a trap. And as he fights his brother, so does his wife get killed by some dark forces, created by his brother, to which the forgotten king then abandons his body and follows her. Here's the world, here's Kramos, and then, the thing, when he follows her and leaves his body inside the tree of life, and his spiritual being goes up to find her entering here, that's where he gets trapped. Then, by Theis in this trap, but it was the forgotten king, god damn it, it was the whisperer who had the last laugh. He was able to take him and hold him in his special place outside of it. The trap that Theis tried to lay was still in the hands of the whisperer, the whisperer's last attempt. The forgotten king, his body turns to stone, stuck in the tree of life. Beowulf was cursed in the forgotten king's dying breath to become this disgusting creature that will end up becoming the Slop King. Cursed and abandoned, stuck in the mires, smashed deep into the ground. Now while Theis took his body and he was going up, his astral body, he wanted to trap him in his prison inside of Kramos, but it was the Whisperer who disrupted that, and now he's in this prison. And the Whisperer's demise. And the Whisperer has the control. He has the new key here. That begins the true story of mankind. From that moment, Tanais enters the forest. So how this exactly happened. Tanais enters the forest because of Theis telling him that he must destroy the Dizarine because his brother betrayed him. So he obeys. He thinks that's his god. Of course I will listen to you, God. He thinks it's Dove, but it's not Dove. And Theis gets him to kill the King of the Wood. How that happened was the King of the Wood was holding the barrier that held the Forgotten King prisoner. He needed him to stop holding the barrier so the Beowulf could help him capture the Forgotten King inside the sun. Sounds fucking nuts, I know. When Tanais stabbed the King of the Wood, the barrier failed. The Forgotten King was able to be freed, so was Aik. That's where they battled, essentially. Aik then goes off, superhero Marvel shit, kills his wife. When he sees his wife's astral body go, he chases it, leaving his body behind to be put into the forest, the tree of life, to be forever trapped. He goes up here, Theis tries to lay that trap, fails, and in the dying breaths of the Forgotten King, he curses Aik Beowulf. So Aik is sent down here. The Whisper takes him. That's essentially what happens. Then from there, mankind grows because Odysseus, who was in that forest, escaped with the Anaku, with a few of the Anaku, and fled the land. Thus would begin the great exodus, the second great exodus, and this is how the Anaku became all over the place. They don't just, I mean, they do dwell in their forests, but there are Anaku that had to inhabit different forests, or they had to become Anaku that would end up being called like Lyria and all that, or the Fachu. Like, that's how they were there. You don't have to live in the forest to be Anaku. It's just a sacred thing. Think of like in the Wheel of Time, the Ogier, or whatever they're called. They're sacred groves, or whatever that was. Essentially the same thing. You can dwell without it, but it's spiritual to be inside of it. Now, that happened in the forest here. This is the Great Trinity Forest. This is Tantorum down in this area, this giant area here. They were able to flee through the mountains, through the Murphos, Odysseus, and the Anaku. Now the other Anaku spread from out here because they were kicked out of this forest. This forest will be empty forevermore. They were kicked out, Odysseus and the few followers that he gathered of humans from Tantorum as well, which is down here. They were kind of in this nation right over here. They fled, and in the Murphos had a 30-odd year odyssey, like Moses, in the Murphos, before they struck the homeland of Uandra. You know, like, here it is, there's Tantorum, this is the Murphos, the big fucking horrible desert. Uandra sits here. They fled to Uandra and established the second kingdom of man. Thus, the kingdom of Uandra grew. And that part of the story ends. And the next part is the rise of Tantorum and Uandra, to which the two nations rose, expanded, the population grew, concepts grew, people lived and died. Many years went by after that. After the scourge of the forest by Tanias in 426, they expanded to about the 500s. They didn't realize Odysseus had lived to that time. Odysseus went over to Uandra, and not very long after passed away. But Uandra grew, and the nations like the Abeco College and the Evens and all that stuff in the last video, that started to grow from there. Then it was in the 510 that it was discovered that Odysseus' kingdom created a kingdom and survived. And it was a man called Mark of Ethos, who began what would be considered the 108 Years' War against Uandra. Now you gotta remember that giant mountain range and the huge fucking desert divided them, so there was this constant kind of jihad / crusade against Uandra. A lot of them didn't make it, the armies sent over there. But it was kind of this weird era that they had, this weird gentleman era of this conflict, which is, that's another story. Thusly, time went by, and in Uandra, the sons of Odysseus, Theseus and Baros, divided up the nation north and south. Theseus took the north, Baros took the south. I talked about the descendant line before and how that all works. So that's when that story happens. And then you have eventually Ravian. And then you have eventually Neopak, which has Eris. Thusly, the world is where we start from there. So as you can see, you have the stories of the Titans and These And then you have another story with Dove. You have the Aeon, which that is the story of Dove. The Aeon and Dove story. You have the snake in the portal. You have the story of Tan. You have the story, there's like subsidiary stories in here, like the, like between here, the snake in the portal, the Aeon, you have a Quinlan's story. You have the snake in the portal, then you have Tan, then you have Tenius and Tanais and Odessa's story. Then you have stories within that of the rise of the kingdoms. You have the story of Markethos and the beginning of the War of Eights. Then after that, you have the rise of the Serpentine Order, another story of Cordus and Martis. That would be the rise of the Slot King. And then you have the origin of Cyprus. We did not go through these last two stories yet. We will soon, because the battery's about to fucking die. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories that we went through. And that is the beginning. That is the high story. Sorry, I have to end it quick, but the battery's about to die.